Maps are not neutral representations. They inherently reflect biases. They function as tools to assert claims and enforce divisions. Maps can be used to maintain control and exert influence. Every element on a map, including lines and names, serves a strategic purpose. During the Age of Empires, maps became strategic instruments of power. European powers used cartography less for knowledge and more for conquest. Coastlines were meticulously charted to facilitate potential invasions. Inland areas were often labeled as unknown, pending resource exploitation. Thus, maps transformed from tools of exploration into weapons of imperial expansion. Cartographers historically served the interests of monarchs rather than local communities. They systematically erased indigenous names from maps. Cartographers inflated the size and importance of European territories on maps. They deliberately placed Europe at the center of world maps. This practice transformed geography into a tool for justifying colonial expansion. Maps became instruments of power, reinforcing European dominance and control. Colonial maps of Africa established artificial borders without regard for existing tribal territories. These imposed borders divided pre-existing tribal lands, disrupting established communities. Colonial powers also invented new national boundaries, disregarding cultural and ethnic realities. Natural geographical features, such as rivers and mountains, were repurposed as political boundaries. This arbitrary reshaping of the landscape served the imperial ambitions of colonial powers. The artificial borders created lasting geopolitical and social consequences for the African continent. The Berlin Conference represents a significant event in the history of colonialism. It involved the arbitrary partitioning of Africa by European powers. European rulers used maps and agreements to divide the continent. This division disregarded existing ethnic and cultural boundaries. The geopolitical consequences of the Berlin Conference continue to impact Africa today. Secret agreements among European powers reshaped the Middle East. These agreements disregarded existing languages and religions. Historical contexts were largely ignored during the partitioning. The agreements led to significant conflicts in the region. These conflicts contributed to long-term instability. The consequences of these agreements persist to this day. Maps, even in peacetime, can perpetuate distortions of reality. The Mercator projection is one such example of distortion. It significantly exaggerates the size of countries in the Northern Hemisphere. Conversely, it shrinks the perceived size of countries in the Southern Hemisphere. This distortion can skew perceptions of global power dynamics and importance. Political maps are visual representations that delineate territories and boundaries. These maps often simplify complex social and cultural identities. Diverse populations are frequently represented as homogeneous groups. This simplification can obscure the nuanced realities within a region. The reduction of identities can lead to a misunderstanding of cultural diversity. Therefore, political maps should be interpreted with an awareness of their inherent simplifications. Modern digital maps actively curate the information presented to users. This curation process involves prioritizing certain data points over others. Simultaneously, some information is deliberately obscured or omitted. These editorial decisions shape the user's perception of the mapped area. The prioritization and obscuration influence our understanding of the world. Thus, digital maps are not neutral representations, but curated perspectives. Historically, maps were instrumental in the establishment and maintenance of empires. Maps served to create narratives of control, projecting an image of order and permanence. These narratives reinforced the empire's authority and legitimacy. Simultaneously, maps often concealed the violence inherent in imperial expansion. They also obscured the exploitation of resources and populations upon which empires were built. Thus, maps functioned as tools of power, shaping perceptions and justifying imperial actions. Cartographic imperialism involves the use of maps to exert cultural and political influence. Comparing maps before and after colonial intervention reveals significant changes. A key change is the erasure of indigenous names from geographical locations. These original names are replaced with European nomenclature. This substitution highlights the cultural impact and dominance of colonial powers. Colonial borders were often strategically drawn to enable resource extraction. These borders frequently disregarded the territories and needs of local populations. Environmental concerns were also largely ignored during the border creation process. Visual map overlays can effectively illustrate this historical exploitation. Historical trade routes illustrate the strategies employed by colonial powers. Cartography played a crucial role in establishing and controlling these global trade networks. Colonial powers utilized maps to define and dominate trade routes. This control facilitated the exploitation of resources and labor from colonized territories. Analyzing historical maps in the classroom promotes critical thinking skills. Historical maps often contain inherent biases, reflecting the perspectives of their creators. These maps can reveal power dynamics and colonial influences prevalent during their creation. Examining these biases fosters a deeper understanding of colonial history. Students learn to question the narratives presented and consider alternative viewpoints. Redrawing borders is a symbolic act with significant geopolitical implications. It represents the potential to reshape the world's political landscape. This process often involves challenging established power structures and norms. Redrawing borders allows for the envisioning of alternative geopolitical arrangements. It can lead to the creation of new nations or the alteration of existing ones. The act highlights the fluid and dynamic nature of political boundaries. Modern mapping technologies, like GPS, redefine spatial perception. Navigation systems actively shape our understanding of place. These technologies raise critical data privacy concerns. Surveillance implications are a growing consideration with digital maps. Cartography's role in shaping our lives is continually evolving.